The sentence sounded low but piercing, uttered amid the silence of the Yonian 5th Division barracks, where 2 global stars were serving their military duties, and it took just 3 words to make the soldiers around him speechless, some even teary. No camera shots, no background music like in their grand concert. There was only the sincere voice of Jungkook, the youngest member of BTS, who finally opened his emotional wounds, right in front of the most meaningful person in his life off stage, Park Jimin. What could make an idol of Jungkook's class, who in the eyes of the world always seemed strong and perfect, cry and apologize openly? And why is the apology directed at Jimin, his best friend and Hyung, who will soon complete his military duty in June 2025? The apology came suddenly. No official announcement, no long explanation. However, the moment left a thrilling, emotional outburst, not only for the soldiers in the barracks, but also millions of fans around the world who later learned about it through internal reports and testimonies of the soldiers. Many ask, what is it exactly? The closeness between Jungkook and Jimin is no secret. From stage to behind the scenes, from their debut in BTS to this period of military service, the two have always seemed to support each other. However, like human relationships in general, even such a deep closeness does not escape small pent-up wounds. And sometimes, that kind of hurt is the hardest to admit until it breaks out in the form of a belated but sincere apology, according to some sources from the military environment. Jungkook's change in behavior began to be noticeable about 2 months before the apology incident. He became more introverted, more aloof, and avoided the interactions he used to have with Jimin. In fact, in tactical exercises, Jungkook several times showed unusual symptoms of emotional exhaustion. Some say he seemed to be holding back something, not physical pain, but a constant piling up of inner pressure. There is speculation that Jungkook feels guilty for something that happened in their personal sphere. Maybe it's about how he behaves when Jimin has a hard time. Or maybe because of a moment where he chose to be silent when he should have spoken, chose to avoid when he should have accompanied. In a stressful military environment, little things can be emotional time bombs, especially for 2 men who have been more than a decade each other's life support. I think he will be angry, but he just stared at me, and I know he understands. That is the confession of one of the soldiers who witnessed the incident. Jungkook's apology wasn't just a formality. It was a statement of the heart, a relief from the burden he had carried for too long. At that moment, Jimin just stood transfixed. Say nothing, but his eyes clearly showed that he was holding back emotions. What happened then was not a quarrel, nor a long clarification, but a hug. Tacit, understanding, and much stronger than any words can say. The hug became a symbol that the two of them, despite the pressure from inside and outside, still remained one in an intact friendship. What makes the moment even more touching is the context of the time. The apology came just weeks before Jimin was cleared of military duty. Jungkook has a few more months to go. It is possible that Jungkook felt that time was running out to say what he needed to say. That if not now, maybe never. The fear of missing that opportunity may have encouraged his courage to admit mistakes, no matter how severe. The reaction of the public was no less emotional. Many said that this moment showed the human side of their idol, that even a Jungkook, with all his achievements, is not immune to guilt and the need to be corrected. He didn't cry because he was weak. She was crying because she was strong, one fan wrote on Twitter. The sentence immediately went viral, becoming a kind of new motto for BTS fans who see this moment not as weakness, but as proof of emotional honesty. I end the entertainment world, where image is often more important than reality. Jungkook's courage to show his fragile side is a rare and brave act. In a rigid system of military training, crying can be considered inappropriate. However, what happened that day proved that emotional courage can go beyond the rules. Even the bosses were said not to reprimand the incident. Instead, They let the moment pass in meaningful silence. A few days after the incident, the atmosphere in the barracks began to change. Jungkook, who had previously seemed closed, began to open up more. He was seen talking more with his colleagues, even starting to rejoin small social activities in the barracks. It was as if the apology had become a kind of inner liberation for him. Meanwhile, Jimin began to prepare for the release process. There was a smile on his face that had not been seen before, a sign that his heart is at peace. Not only because the end of his service was near, but also because the emotional burden of being with his best friend had been unraveled. Will Jungkook reveal the exact reason at a later date? Maybe, but maybe not. And it doesn't matter. Because what matters is not the details of the mistake, but rather the courage to admit it and the sincerity to correct. Jungkook's last words in the moment, which could only be captured by the soldier standing closest, became a haunting and touching sentence. "I just want you to know that I never intended to hurt you. Thank you for staying by my side." The days of separation are getting closer, but the mood is no longer heavy. Jungkook may remain in Division 5 without Jimin, but he no longer feels alone. The hugs of the night, the apologies spoken with tears, and the unconditional understanding of a best friend have changed everything. This story probably won't appear on BTS's hit song list, but for many fans, it's one of the most authentic, most human, and most inspiring moments to ever happen in the group's journey. A reminder that even in the midst of world fame, they are still people who can fall, get hurt, and grow through love, courage, and forgiveness. And for fans who watched all this from afar, one thing became clear: BTS is not just a musical group. They are stories of real friendship, struggle, and humanity. Tears are the most honest language. But can tears also be part of a deliberately formed narrative? This is the question that is now resonating among the public, shortly after the touching news of Jungkook publicly apologizing to Jimin in the middle of their military duty spread quickly through various digital platforms. But now that the emotions have subsided, it's time to ask, are we really witnessing fragments of the fragile and human lives of two BTS members? Or is it just a meticulously woven story, woven from cryptic bits of information gleaned from social media like TikTok, YouTube Shorts, to Twitter, that indeed often spreads faster than the truth itself? We need to reflect. Is this story coming from verified journalism or from algorithms that deify clicks and likes? To what extent do we recognize the line between fact and fiction when it comes to celebrities? When someone like Jungkook cries and apologizes, the effect is amazing. Army cries, articles explode, reaction videos scatter, and the media again gets traffic. But do we really know the context and events that actually happened behind the news? Some fan accounts claim to have information from military insiders. But is such validation enough to make it a fact? Or is it precisely the product of the telephone effect news that spreads from mouth to mouth, or account to account, until it changes shape and meaning? If so, who really controls this narrative? The original source, the media, or us as consumers of the news? BTS is not just a music group. They're a symbol, a brand, and a global cultural force. Any gesture, word, even a pause in their communication can be interpreted as something important. But this is also what makes them an easy target for sensationalism. Is it possible that this news of tears and apologies is just a diversion or an attempt to attract sympathy before a massive comeback? Don't forget, the entertainment world has a long history of creating dramatic moments to keep the public's attention. Let us ask, if this event really happened, why is there no official documentation from Big Hit or the military? Isn't an agency as big as HYB usually quick to release clarifications or statements if sensitive things regarding their artist's reputation stick out? Or did they deliberately leave the news unresponsive as a form of covertly profitable silence marketing? Have you ever felt overwhelmed too quickly by news that is not necessarily true? Is it possible that we, as the public, are part of a cycle of unverified information, but that we continue to consume because it matches our emotional expectations? Jungkook and Jimin are indeed true friends. That's evident from their long history together. But does Jungkook really feel guilty? Did the apology really take place publicly in the military barracks? Why is it that so much of today's news comes from 15-second TikTok video snippets or tweets with bombastic captions? In fact, there are accounts that edit old concert moments and attach them to emotional narratives to create the illusion that they are happening at the moment. This is the importance of media literacy in the digital age. We need more than feelings to determine the truth. We need verification. We need context. We need time to process, not just share. Have you ever shared news like this without checking the truth first? Why is it often easier to believe in heart-wrenching narratives than in cold, boring facts? Is this because we are hungry for meaning, even if it is built on a fragile foundation? Of course, this does not mean that we should categorically reject all emotional news.